Hello, everyone, and thank you all for joining us today for a Learning and Growing webinar on efficiently providing personalized feedback for large classes. Our presenter today is Cheryl Wachenheim of North Dakota State University. My name is Sidra, and I'll be your moderator today for Hawks Learning. We will have a live Q&A session after the presentation, so please enter any questions you have into the Q&A module as we go, and we'll be sure to answer them at the end. I'll now hand it over to our presenter.
Well, thank you. Good morning. So my name, as you mentioned, is Cheryl Wachenheim from North Dakota State University. And I'm excited to talk to you today about providing personalized feedback to large classes. I discovered how to do this semester, and I'm very excited about it. And it's had great feedback from the students. So I wanted to share that with you. So I am specifically teaching a large 286 student class. It's online. It's asynchronous. So this is my student out there, right? Somebody who's working on their own time at their own pace with specific deadlines. And I don't know these students, right? So one thing I do is I require the students to write a short self-introduction so that I can get some personalized information from them and give them some feedback. So at least I know who's in the class and they know specifically that they're heard. So I did go to Chat GTP and also some materials I've had before to try to understand how to engage students in large online classes because it's quite challenging, right? So I asked Chat GPT to give me an outline, right, of what might talk about in a large webinar or an all-day conference about this, and I refined it a bit as you would, right? So the basic idea was to understand the challenges we face in online classes and also communicating with students who are in person in large classes. What are the obstacles that we come up with to engaging students, faculty to students, student to student engagement, and whether that impacts their learning and their general outlook on things, their confidence, and so on. And some strategies that we've heard about over time, right, are active learning techniques, multimedia, discussion forums. I know a lot of people use discussion forums where they need to read what other students have identified as important from a passage, for example, and respond to that. Collaborating on activities, having breakout rooms, that sort of thing, games and other interactive tools, and then providing personalized feedback generally by email, right? So, and you would also talk about how to leverage technology in doing this. What tools do we have available to us to help us interact with students? And then at the end, essentially, how are we going to do it? How are we going to collect data and whether or not students feel engaged? And how we're going to make changes based on that data. So all of that would be like a conference, right? Where I could learn a little bit on how to engage my students more fully. So this presentation, however, I'm just demonstrating according to the spiel that they sent out, right? To how to send targeted and personalized email messages based on their performance using Mailmerge. And this only covers this red part, right? How to provide personalized feedback. And I'm here to share, right? I'm also here to learn a little bit about ideas you have as well. But this tool has been so powerful for me that I wanted to share it with a group, right? So I'm going to go ahead and ask ask you some questions. It looks like it's open. So let's see. I'm going to send a poll up there. Okay, ended relaunch poll. So I have a poll up there for you to answer. I'm specifically interested in 3 questions, whether you're currently using Mailmerge in any regard, if you're teaching classes that are, say, larger than 60 students, and how you're teaching. So if you could go ahead and respond to those. Okay, it looks like we have all the responses we're going to have. So I'm going to go ahead and share the results with the group. So we have here, most people are not using mail merge. And once I discovered what I'm going to share with you today, I use it in all aspects of my teaching and research. So do you teach large classes? And it looks like about a quarter of us are teaching relatively large classes, right? Where it's, the reason I ask that is because sometimes it's more challenging to provide personalized feedback in large classes. And then about 70% are teaching in person, 70% online. Of course, many of us are teaching both synchronous and asynchronous. So that's great. All right, so it's exciting for me that many of you haven't used mail merge. So I'm trying to figure out how to get back to the webinar. There we go. Okay. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to use mail merge in a large classroom. And this class is a class of 268 students. For our ability to just kind of see things, I've narrowed it down to 29 students. So everybody can see on the screen, is that correct?
Yep, we can
Okay.
see it.
Perfect. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I had to find out a way to communicate with students that they hadn't done something that's due relatively quickly. So, for example, I downloaded the grade book from our learning management system, and in our case, we're using Blackboard. You may be using Canvas or Moodle or some other particular learning management system. But our learning management system allows us to download the grade book, essentially. So what I'm showing here is part of the grade book. Now, these are not actual students, right? Because we have FERPA. So what I did is I took the most common last names in the United States, and then I took the most common first names for girls and boys, and that's what you see here. So these are not real people, other than these are the members of our immediate family. So the first thing I need to do, and I just want to, if you haven't worked with Excel before, this is kind of neat to know. Many people have done this before, but it doesn't give us their email. If we want to use their email, we have to go through the learning management systems email program, and that's not particularly handy. So you can take almost anything. In this case, I just want to make an email. All the emails that our students use their usernames at ndsu.edu. So I can just type in there the username, and I want to add to that ndsu.edu. And there I have the usernames for all of these students. And I'm showing you that because it's important that everybody realizes how much functionality Excel has. It's just amazing, right? So this field is the email that the students have. So who do I want initially email? Well, so what I do, I notice my primary consideration is that they didn't take the exam 3 yet, and it's due this evening, right? So what I do is I take the grade book, whatever I'm doing, and I sort, right? So in this case, I want to sort by whether or not they took exam 3. So in that case, it's in K. We'll take largest to smallest, right? Okay. So I know that there are students, there were actually yesterday morning, this exam was due last night, and yesterday morning in this class, there were 100 students that hadn't yet taken the exam. So I was quite surprised. But it's these students here who have not yet taken the exam that I'm concerned about. So I want to send them a message that is not only a message you didn't take it, but it's personalized. So I want to send these students right here a message. So I'll just go up here and type message. And I want to say to these students something, positive, I suppose. So I want to say to all these students, I noticed you have not yet had an opportunity to take exam 3. Just a gentle reminder that it is due at midnight, right? Good luck. So that's what message I want that these students who have not taken it to receive, right? So I just copy that right down, right? Now, as long as I'm doing this, right? And I use this for different purposes, but as long as I'm sending an email merge, why don't I tell these students the exam was out of 120, so, or out of 150. So let's say anybody who got an 80% or better, I want to send great job on exam 3. Keep up the good work. And I'll just copy that down, right? And I'll copy it down and say that far, right? So what do I say to the rest of the students? How do I acknowledge that they exist, that they've done something, right? So what I like to do is I look at, for example, exam 3 minus exam 2, and I just quickly calculate the difference between exam 2 and exam 3. And okay. Now what I can do is I can sort these students again, right, by L. I only need to sort the ones that do not yet have something in there. So I sort by L, which is their improvement since the previous exam. And whoa, so I have some students who have really picked up the pace here, right? So I say, wonderful improvement on your exam score. Keep up the good work, right? And so I just copy that down. I want to maybe go all the way down to 9 and say, and the next students, I just want to, let's see if I said Cheryl. I can even say, have a great day, right? Whatever you want to say, whatever you would ordinarily say in communications. Then I would just go, down to the next one. I notice you improved your exam score. Great work. Like that, or keep up the good work, or whatever you want to say, right? And so then you have these students down here. So what do you say? You can sort it by other things, right? You can sort it by, for example, and let's see. You can just actually, for the purposes of this webinar, right? You can sort it by how they improved over time from the first exam to the third exam. You can look at whether they've done the chapter work and how they've done. You can sort it by anything so that you have something positive to say. So I noticed you took the exam well prior to the deadline. Thanks. Okay, so I'm just saying something, right? And it's from me. So we have something for everybody, and that's sometimes important, right? So I just go ahead and save this. I will save it as on the desktop, right? Engaging students, save, right? All right, so then we have a folder saved. I know who they are. The important thing is I know their first name, I know their email address, and I have something to say to them. So there you go. All right. And then, so what I want to do is I want to open Microsoft Word. And if you're using an Apple computer, I'm assuming it's very similar. Just open a document. And I think this will be recorded, or I could share the information with you as well. So I want to do a mailing, start mail merge, and step by step, because I'm not really that great at it, right? So I want to do step by step, which there's only 6 steps, right? So I want to start. I want to select recipients, right? I'm using the current document. That's this one. I select the recipients, right? So what I'm doing here is I'm putting my particular Excel spreadsheet that I just developed. And it's right here, right? All right. And there it shows me, hopefully, the students, right? So these are all the students, right? And just click OK. This is how easy it is, right? And then I want to write my letter. So in this case, I want to say good morning, right? If it's morning, for us, it's morning still, right? And then I want to put their first name. This is how you personalize it, right? So you just put first name. That's it, right? And then I want to put a period, and I want to say whatever it is I'm saying to them. So I just insert another mail merge. In this case, I'm going to send the message. That's how easy it is, right? So I go down here, I preview the letters, right? And it allows me to see every letter, right? So over here, you just go, Ellie's getting that, David, oh, Oliver got a different message because, like that. So you just make sure that you have the right message, everything's working, right? And I put complete the merge. And actually, I think I did something. We're gonna have to start over. But this is if you were gonna send a letter. I made a mistake. I'm a teacher, right? So we make mistakes. So it won't really hurt anything. You can take a little rest. One thing that you'll notice, if this was the worst mistake I make all day, then we'll be good. So start mail merge. I should have put email here. That's my error. before I had letter. So if you can do this same thing, if you're working to print out some letters. So same steps, it doesn't hurt to go through it again. I'm using this same spreadsheet, right? And it's like a review session for you, right? So same. And I want to write my email message, which remember we put hi, we want to personalize it. So we insert a field, which is their first name. And then we close that out, put a period, right? And then we just add our message. And that's it, right? So that's all it's to it. Preview your email. Again, you can see who you're sending what message to, right? And then complete the merge. Now I want to send it by electronic mail. I'm going to email it to myself so it doesn't get confused. See, I'm going to email them all to myself rather than to the student. Usually you just put the email that you'd use, for example, in our example here, you would put the email that we've identified earlier, but I'm just going to email them to myself so we don't end up, and I'm going to put AgriCon 347 exam 3. And I say, okay. And it's emailing them to the students right now, right? Each student is going to get an individualized email that says their name, right? And says something that's relevant to them. And it essentially an idea, I noticed you, right? So I want to show you, because I emailed them, it will show me, these all came to me because I emailed them to myself. But if you look at the sent box in your email, you will see that, all the emails that you sent. So it actually sent it through your system. Now, I initially thought this was just something to do to sort of catch up with students that hadn't taken the exam, for example, to get people motivated. But in reality, what happened was I started receiving, remember we have 268 students, everybody got an email. I received over 100 emails in response from students. Many of them said, thanks for checking in. They explained why they hadn't taken the exam yet and said something encouraging like, I plan to do it. I plan time for this evening. Just thanks for recognizing me. And that response rate is almost 33%, right? So it's amazing. And then I have talked to, I have colleagues who have students that are in our department, for example, and the students have noted to their parents that, boy, I'm really getting a lot of personalized, there's a lot of interaction and so on. And in reality, there's not a lot of interaction, right? There's simply what I'm doing is sharing this feedback. I feel sometimes I'm not sure if it's the right thing to do because I know the student perceives it as an individualized email, and I'm not really sending an individualized email. So we can chat about that in the chat, whether it's appropriate to be doing this. Now in my personal life, every time I get an email or a letter, I wonder, to myself, is this a mail merge, right? Now that I've discovered this new tool. So I'm interested in what you think about that. And I'm also interested in particular, what other ideas you have for student engagement with large classes, whether they're in person or online. So at this time, I'll take your questions, but really, I hope you put in the chat. I think the exciting thing is I hope you put in the chat some ideas for me. And I'll turn that back over to you as a moderator if we don't see anything. So.
Let's give people a couple minutes to
Okay.
add in their questions. We do
So,
have one that's asking, have you noticed any improvement in scores or grades because of this attention?
and that's an excellent question, and it's one we are now. I've recruited a colleague to do this as well, and we're doing that, and we're going to have a control group, right? So I haven't noticed it personally myself because we're still relatively early in the semester. I can since everybody's receiving a positive feedback, it's pretty hard to tell. It's a good question. So what we're going to do next semester is we're going to send half the class a positive email after every exam, a very positive pointed email after every exam. And half the class, we're just going to send regular emails, right? And the hardest part about this, because we have to know whether it's really making a difference or not, it is going through the IRB process, right? Because you're sending half the class something and you're not sending the other class. We've also tried to do it where one class gets it and one class doesn't, but we don't have similar classes. So it's sort of a sticky point, right? But I made the argument, which is very valid, that I wouldn't send them this kind of pointed feedback to anybody if we weren't doing this study. So I guess we'll see. We'll give an answer to that. And you can weigh in whether I'm not sure I feel good about it, sending half the class something and half the class not, but. So I'm seeing the chat here and I see a lot of really good points in the chat. I don't know if you have the chat open, but personalization, some people say it's great. That it's amazingly effective. Just try it, right? I did it this morning with my advisees, right? It's advising week. I put my advisees emails into a spreadsheet and I just said, hey, it's coming up on spring registration. I'd love to meet with you, and it's a personalized email and I get it back. Canvas has a grade book. Oh, you can message students, right? Okay. Oh, that's great. Canvas has a gradebook feature that messages students who hasn't taken the exam or that's fantastic. So the actual learning management system is giving you that particular information. I can write, I know Shakat Ice, it says it went too fast. I'd like you to know what you press. Are you recording this so they can go back through it?
Yep, we'll send them a recording of this webinar once it becomes available.
Right. And you can email me directly. I'll just put my email in here and I can send you sort of the instructions. I'll have to write them up, so it might be a couple of days, but you can email me and I'll send you the instructions, but you could also just watch it like we have our students do, watch it and work through it. Starfish sends personalized emails, and that's really great. That's fantastic. Canvas. Have you ever sent a message to a student? Yes, that's a great question. So I personally, because I'm new at this, I am terrified that I'm going to send the wrong email or it's not going to work. So my family knows that, a couple times a week, they're getting an email addressed to them that says something that's not relevant to them because I'm practicing, right? I'm making sure. The other thing you can do, and this is really important, is it allows you to preview the message, right? So in my case, the first time I did it, I went through and I looked at 286 messages, right? I clicked the next, just to make sure it was good. But that's a risk, right? I really, another thing that's coming out of this, I see from the chat, is that now I realize the power of doing this. And I realize I'm trying to come up with ways to be positive about a student who's getting a 50% on the exam. And I realize that from trying to think through how do I provide positive feedback to students who are not doing so well, right? So what do I say to them? And so that's, for example, when I said, thanks for taking the exam, but you really have to dig deep, and doing this by sorting the students and so on, you get a really good feel for what's going on in your class, one that I've never had. I'm sort of ashamed to say that, but now I know what proportion of the class increased. I know rather than just the exam across the board, the average, I know which students increased. I can put information about the students in there. We've thought about that, whether they're first generation students, whether they're whether they're our majors or majors in sort of a science related. We're ag economists, so whether it's a science related thing. So I know who's improving and who's not, who's struggling and who's not, and it's very powerful. So used mail merge when sending out grant notices. Yeah, that's great. It's amazing. Does it increase student participation? I'm not teaching it synchronously. I know that it increases student communication and participation, sort of maybe not participation, but it increases greatly student engagement with me. I don't know. I guess if you have some ideas of how to how to make it so that they're increasing engagement with one another. I've discovered something, it was quite shocking to me. In Blackboard, the default is that students can email the entire class, just like we can through the Blackboard. So if you want to, that students can't do that because one of the students sent an announcement to the whole class about a job opportunity. And I asked whether that was inappropriate through FERPA, and the response was it's just like a student standing up in a traditional class saying McDonald's is hiring, right? So they can engage. Sometimes if a student does poorly, say something that looks like you struggled with the activity, please make an appointment to chat. That's great. That's great, Amanda. Yeah, so you can specifically, it doesn't have to be positive. You can say you struggled. I see it. I'm here, reach out. That's a great idea. Looks like that's all the chat.
Awesome. Do you have any additional closing remarks for us?
No, I'm just really excited that you participated, and I'm excited to share this with you.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you all for attending, and thank you, Cheryl, for the presentation today. We will be emailing you a link to view the recording of this webinar once it becomes available. If you or any of your fellow instructors are interested in presenting for our Learning and Growing webinar series, please submit your proposals to the Learning and Growing website, which I'm going to go ahead and link in the chat now for easy access. These free webinars are brought to you by Hawks Learning, an innovative educational courseware company. To learn more about our mastery-based course materials and how Hawks can enhance learning outcomes for you and your students, please visit hawkslearning.com, and I hope everyone has a great rest of your day. Thank you all for attending.